Hello, this is Jenny Clark with Solvability. In today's What's Up with Mitch session, we're going to be talking about how much should we be spending on bid and proposal, or B&P. So Mitch, as you know, is my imaginary client who's a federal contractor, and he knows how to get contracts, and he's realizing that he's got the momentum. He wants to grow faster, and he's looking for some guidance to make all that happen. And one of the things he's asked about today is how much should we be spending on B&P? Now, it used to be many years ago, there was a limit on how much you could claim on bid and proposal. That rule went away when people talk about a 3-year average and it can only be this percent. That doesn't really happen anymore. You can spend as much as you want on bid and proposal, but what's happening is you need to be deciding how you're going to allocate that scarce resource, that precious, here's the amount of money we have to spend in order to go after this much in work. And we've got to make good decisions about choosing what opportunities to go after, making sure we're prepared with our capture and our proposal and our pricing strategy, our management volume, all of our scope of work, our approach, and how we're going to staff it, all these good things. How much should we be spending on B&P is a really important part of the question. Well, as usual, Mitch just says, Jenny, I just want it all to work. So he asked me some specific questions. I try to give him some specific answers. If I don't have them, I try to track them down or say, you know who we ought to call about that? And we'll get on the phone and find out. So the first question is there a rule of thumb about B&P as a percentage of revenue? And if there's a rule of thumb, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm thinking it's somewhere between 3 and 5%. And here's why. As a government contractor, it's a small business, you have costs, which are your fringe benefit, your employees' cost, the labor, you've got fringe benefits, you've got overhead, and you've got G&A, or general and administrative, which is your corporate expense. In a competitive world, I see people's G&A or corporate expense being between 8 and 15%. When you're small, your G&A is a lot higher. When you get larger, it starts to be going down. And when you get to the point as a federal contractor where you're starting to be at the mature point of that company, where you're starting to be at the top of your size standards, your G&A, you've got to drive that G&A rate down in order to be competitive, or you're not going to win anything. So with a G&A of 12%, let's say, if my bid and proposal is much more than 3 to 5%, my G&A rate is going to be higher than it needs to be. I'm not going to be competitive. So it's a real catch-22. You spend too much going after bids, it drives up your G&A rate. You can't be profitable, and you can't win a bid because they think your G&A rate's too high. Now, obviously, you can always bid a lower G&A rate than you're actually incurring. You can choose to do it that way. But it needs to be reasonable, or they'll just throw out your bid. How do people track their pipeline? Well, most of the people that I've seen have a spreadsheet, and they have a list of what they're going after. They update it all the time, and they include in there the dates, the amounts, who their partners might be, what percentage, what their probability of win is, what they're doing, what actions they're taking. And as far as how they're tracking their pipeline, what you really want to be thinking, when Mitch asked me that question, the first thing I thought of is, how do you track the relationship between your pipeline and what's going to come in as revenue? Because just like anything else, you've got to be working on getting the sales in order to get the sales, and you've got to spend money to go after that work. So that's your pipeline turning into real revenue. What can we do to increase our P-win? Our P-win might be our probability of winning. And what I've seen most people that are in business development do is go through an evaluation process to really decide what they're going after, and they're evaluating their relationship with their customer and their past performance, a lot of different factors. And you can go out to any number of different sites and download some of those recommendations from people that are in this business that will give you some things to help you decide what factors you want to take into account. How do we lose that contract? Sometimes I can't explain what happened, and it could be that losing that contract had nothing to do with your company or your company performance. I've heard a lot of stories lately, and one of the ones that really baffled me is, we didn't get the option year. Why didn't you get the option year? Well, the person that was supposed to renew it was on vacation for about a month and she just forgot to do it. So we didn't get it. And there really wasn't anything they could go back and do because it just automatically expired, which, you can do everything you want to try to make these things happen, but some things are out of your control. Do we have the right people doing these business development proposals? That is a great question. Um, you don't know how good your business developer is until success happens or success doesn't happen. And sometimes that's not really a function of what they did or did not do. But at the same time, you want to be considering how much you're spending, how much you can afford to spend, and how long you're going to let somebody be a part of that team without knowing that you're getting the results that you expected. And that's a really tough call. As far as proposals, um, there's a lot of pressure these days on trying to reduce the cost of proposals. Now, that could be done by having less proposals, by going after less complicated work, by trying to take a different approach. And I don't think I have the answer, of course, but those are the types of questions that Mitch has really got to decide. And he's probably going to find out that information by talking to some of his peers and find out what their experience is and what they look for, because that's really where the information is going to come. But it's always hard to say, okay, at what point do I look for results, and if results aren't occurring, what action would I take? But Mitch is unstoppable. Are you unstoppable? You know where you want to go. Solvability can help you get there with the cost and pricing intelligence you need to accelerate and scale your business. Most of our clients get started with our free wrap rate calculator, just a simple spreadsheet that shows you how to calculate using your overhead and G&A rate, your profit, and figure out what your fully burdened labor rate needs to be. It has a little video that explains it. By the way, there's several different ways to calculate your overhead and G&A, and I'm not really going into a lot of that type of detail, but just wanted to give you some examples so you can see how it should work. If you want a copy of the wrap rate calculator, you can go to our website, solvability.com. That's S as in Sam, OLV as in Victor, and the word ability.com. Sometimes you got something a little more complicated, and you really need to talk to somebody that can help you work through that issue and figure out what your options are and what you might need to do. So if you do have questions that you'd like to talk to me about, you can text me. Just my mobile number is 256-882-6276. Tell me your name and your company and what your urgent issue is, and we'll text you back and we'll set up a phone call and see what you might need.